And then
Fun.
slideshow. There we go.
We're ready.
So that American mink walked up to me yesterday, about 15 feet away from me, while I was
Wow.
teaching a class.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those powers of mind control are working out for you. See what I can do, kids? They call me the mink whisperer.
That's right.
So sweet.
And then
Great.
these are ravens' eggs. The ravens laid their eggs on the old nest of peregrine falcons.
No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right. Socially distanced trumpeter swans.
Well, I don't see that one yet.
Mm-mm.
Oh, really? Is
Mm-mm.
this not working? What are you looking at right now?
The raven.
Oh, it just stopped there. It just stopped there. I can't believe it. It's not even moving, is it?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
I'm about 8 slides past that.
Sorry.
Oh, well. I'm going to admit all.
Sounds good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome here. So I understand that maybe my slides aren't advancing. That makes me
Well,
sad. What are we looking at, Sue?
the raven.
The Ravens still.
The raven forevermore.
Forevermore. I had so many other pictures.
Try again.
Oh my goodness, how funny is that?
It happens. Try it one more time.
Oh, you got to see some of my pictures, everyone. My
No.
goodness. Let's see if I can do this again. This is worth waiting for because I had some pretty pictures. Let's see, I got to
Oh,
do
you were
that.
talking about socially distanced trumpeter swans. That's always fun.
Yeah, exactly. So the storyline there is that I was out on Lax Lake. Somebody had said that trumpeter swans had shown up and they were landing on the lake. And so I showed up there and they weren't there. And so I had sort of like, well, they must have left already. But then lo and behold, the 6 of them come flying in. They just come soaring in across the lake. And then all of a sudden, they all landed all 6 feet apart. It was perfect.
Here we go.
So
Bum,
are you seeing it?
Not yet. It says you're starting the screen sharing.
Well,
I
you know
don't know.
what? I think I'm going to give up on that. I can't even believe it. I'm going to share them with you another day. Something's wrong
Okay.
with my computer. So I'm not able to get the slideshow to show, but it's pretty pictures of the trumpeter swans, and I have pictures of peregrine falcons. And I was sharing a story about how a mink walked up to me 15 feet away from me while I was teaching a virtual field trip. Larry, you would have been so jealous. This mink came right up to me and hung out. It was so fun.
And weren't you teaching like tracking animals?
I was. It was totally teaching tracking animals too. I mean, no, but you can't plan something like
No.
that.
Perfect.
Well, enough of us. What I want to do is I want to welcome our presenter today. Deb is with us. She's going to be sharing things. And like I said to everybody earlier and all the others, is that I'm recording this. Please put in the chat where you're coming from so that we can capture that. And that if you have friends that aren't here, that I've recorded this and we're going to put that on the website. And Deb, so that I don't just gob up the whole space here with my voice, I want to turn it over to you. You're in charge.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. I'm very, very glad to be here. Let's see if I can get my slides to advance here. Okay. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Sure.
It makes me sick to my stomach
Yeah.
when I think about all of the environmental challenges that we are facing here in Minnesota and the Midwest and the world, it's overwhelming. And sometimes I feel helpless. Like I just want to curl into a ball. But I think I found the antidote. The antidote is kids. Youth have the passion, the energy, and the imagination to move us toward a more sustainable future. And that's why I am proud to work for, yes, Youth Eco Solutions. I've been with the program for about 1.5 years, and I just love it. It's very, very rewarding. Our mission is to empower youth to create solutions to today's ecological challenges through hands-on action projects, solving real-world problems by working together. YES is a statewide program, and it's a program of the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center, which is in Spicer, Minnesota. And on the map, you can find Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center as one of the green triangles. I'll see if my pointer will work here, but there's Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. And the program is a partnership also with Nye Nature Center. There we go. In Henderson, Minnesota. And that's where I'm based out of, is at Nye Nature Center in Henderson. And I'm showing you the map from last year, the 2019 and 20 map, because it's more typical of the number of teams and the distribution of teams that we have involved during a particular season. Just like school everywhere, things have been very different this year. And a number of these teams weren't able to participate in the program this year, but do intend on returning next year. So yes, in a nutshell, we work with students in grades 7 through 12, and they form a team at their school, and they have a team coach who's usually a teacher, often a science teacher, but it doesn't need to be that. Or an administrator, community volunteer can be a coach to provide some guidance for the kids, although it's a youth-led program. That's what it's intended to be. Some of our YES teams are part of a course, like Westbrook Walnut Grove's Earth YES class. More often, YES is an extracurricular club. So the team meets before school, lunch, after school, or with virtual meetings, it's kind of all over the place now, the timing. And then as a team, the students work on planning and implementing environmental action projects over the course of the school year. And as we're coming into the spring, we're kind of moving into this mode right now. Teams are kind of compiling what they have been working on, kind of wrapping up projects, and then they will report their results and compete with other teams around the state for cash awards during our annual YES Championship. And typically that awards ceremony is at the Twins game. But with the pandemic, everything's kind of thrown out the window in some ways. So we'll do another virtual ceremony like we did last year. So today's presentation's time with you today, I'd like to focus on our environmental action projects, which is a key core part of our YES program. It's not the only part, but this is the one I'll focus on because I would like to try to convince you that you should be doing environmental action projects with your students, whether or not you're part of the YES team. I hope we can convince you and spur some ideas for how you can do that. So YES has been doing, we've been around since 2007, and in that time, over 1,300 projects have been completed by more than 4,300 students participating in our program. So we've learned some things along the way, but teams are always coming up with new ways to address environmental problems. So most of our projects tend to focus in about 6 or 7 core topic areas, but an individual project can include multiple topic areas. The YES program, before we were Youth Eco Solutions, YES stood for Youth Energy Summit. And so energy has been a big part of our program from the start. So a number of teams have done energy conservation projects, like switching out all of their energy hungry fluorescent light tubes in their common areas of the school with energy efficient LED lights. This is Mankato West School. And renewable energy is another popular topic for our teams. In this case, the Rentschel Yes team built a solar-powered boat for the Solar Regatta in 2018, and they actually won that competition. So as the student said, you can talk about these things, you can think about energy use. You really just need to get out there and do something about it. And for this student, Yes has been a great way to do that through the projects. Other project topics include waste reduction, whether it's doing a cafeteria garbage sort to determine how much of what people are throwing away can be recycled, either in a standard recycling program or in an organics recycling program, so developing compost, for example. And students often, through all of our projects, they tend to have an environmental education component as well, where they're sharing what they've learned with either younger students or their peers or the public. Water quality projects are, just about every team has done kind of a water quality project. In this example, a Sleepy Eye student has collected water from the Cottonwood River and is using a Secchi tube to determine the water clarity as a measure of water quality. So since sedimentation is a big problem in southern Minnesota especially, that's a very relevant project. And then those data that get collected are shared with the Pollution Control Agency stream monitoring program. And its program is also supported by Riverwatch. Habitat and soil health is another popular project area, as well as local foods. And I'm going to be giving you further examples of these projects as we go along. As I said, I'd like to convince you to take a stab at doing environmental action projects. And I forgot to ask at the beginning, what grades you are working with and whether you've done environmental action projects or not. But hopefully there'll be something for everyone here. Maybe we can, actually you can go ahead and type that in the chat. Let's just pivot a little bit here. So are you currently doing environmental action projects? If you could type that into the chat, and my co-host can take a look at the chat and see what's coming up there. I'll come back and revisit. You can feel free in the chat to tell us if you're doing environmental action projects. You don't have to go into detail, and also what grade level that you're working with if you're working with students. So why environmental action projects? Well, they're inherently interdisciplinary, and they're problem-solving tasks that bring together a lot of what students are already learning and inspire them to dig even deeper into subject areas. In particular, STEM subjects are very important. Observation and inquiry is at the front end of all of our YES projects. And then students also incorporate technology, technological solutions or data collection techniques. Their engineering solutions like a hydroponic system, for example, or they are using math skills to document their results, calculate project impact, or to just design those systems. But it's not just about STEM topics. These projects draw in skills from the arts, from music, from visual arts, from drama, language arts, communication. Students are talking to other peers, they're talking to each other, they're talking to the public. They're learning a lot of these skills that other courses are working to develop. And of course, they support Minnesota academic standards and the next generation science standards. And which standards are met depends on the project itself, but a lot of the skills that students are developing hit a lot of different areas in the standards. And if that wasn't compelling enough reason to convince you to do environmental action projects, think of the kids, what they like to do. They want to do more of these hands-on types of activities, and they want to make a difference in the world. even if that world is just their classroom or their home or the community. So I think that's very powerful. So I'm going to walk you through some of the steps of the planning process, and hopefully you'll be able to take some of these ideas and build them into projects that you might be doing. I'm going to pause now, since I said I was going to do that before, and check in and see what folks have said in the chat as far as whether they're doing projects and what age groups they're working with. Can you help me out with that, Joe?
You bet, sure. So teaching preschool, 5th and 6th graders, 4th graders. We've got mostly with adults, another person here, K-12, a variety of things like that, Girl Scouts, 2nd grade through high school. But then it seems like a lot of folks haven't done as much environmental action projects, at least the way that they're interpreting it right now. We'll see,
Okay.
Right?
That's great. Well, thank you very much. And hopefully, again, you'll come away with some ideas about what you'd like to do and how to modify this for different grade levels as well. In terms of our YES teams, in the fall, students gather, and after determining, group norms, behavior expectations in terms of being respectful to each other and listening, and just how to be cooperative and collaborative, we have those group norms, and then students plan projects as a team. They start off by identifying community needs and assets. They talk about action ideas, define their goals, and then create a timeline for achieving those goals. So the kind of guiding questions we might ask to students in terms of discussion and trying to identify those needs in their community. Where are the needs? What are the challenges that are facing us at home, at school, in our community? What are hot topics? What are things people are talking about in our community? And how do they tie to real needs? How can our projects help people? It's not just about the environment, but about helping people in the environment. So these are guiding questions. I'm going to ask you to go into a breakout room with a small number of other participants. And I would like you to think of your own students in your own community, your own place, because it's very place-based. And I'd like you to think and share a little bit about what types of environmental challenges or opportunities your students might observe. And after folks have had a chance to share that, if you have time, what questions might those observations lead to? How can we lead from the observation into the inquiry? So I would like, Joe, if you could help us by putting folks into breakout rooms. I think we can take about, we'll take 13 minutes.
Okay.
That sound good? Since I have 3:47. So if we want to wrap up around at 4 o'clock, that would be good.
Yeah. So what'll happen now is that
let me know when everyone's back in, please.
We've got 3 folks who haven't quite returned yet.
While we're waiting, the folks that are back into our whole group here, would you think about one of the challenges or opportunities that you think students might observe and type it into the chat, please? I want to share an example of one of those environmental challenges or opportunities that you came up with.
So Deb, are you able to read the chat right now?
I am, right.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good. Yeah.
Single-use packages and the masks, right? That's a very relevant topic right now as far as the impact on the environment. Absolutely. New science standards around erosion, shade, and water. Excellent. Those are things I'm very interested in myself. Food waste. Water quality. Excellent. Well, it looks like there's been no shortage of opportunities for environmental challenges to address. And I'd like to share with you the types of questions that students, hang on, there we go. The types of questions that students might have come up with to lead into the projects that we're going to talk about next, or the project examples that we're going to talk about next. Don't worry, you don't need to read this whole big block of text. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of some of the kinds of questions that students can come up with that can lead to further inquiry. We'll come back to the project examples in just a moment. The next step in the planning process, we talked about identifying the community needs. That's what you were just talking about in your breakout rooms. And the next step would be to identify community assets. So what do you already have going well in the community that can help you meet your project goals? Who are your allies? Who are your connections? Who do you have an in with? Those sorts of things. And I will show you an example from the Springfield YES team. And they looked at these different kinds of assets. And these are the same ones that were listed on the previous slide. Basically, the human assets would be, the knowledgeable people, the people with the skills that you can tap into to help you out with the project. Associations would be clubs, service organizations, for example. Institutions would be the school itself, or the church, or they put down a store, a golf course, a university in town. The built environment would include kind of infrastructure like parks, a fishing pier, a bike trail. Natural assets, probably pretty self-explanatory, what do you have in terms of natural habitat around you, and the financial assets as well. You can see here probably that students got as far as banks for financial. The financial aspects of projects is kind of another topic that we could get into, but financial could also include, donors, or ways to have fundraisers, things like that, that could be rolled into a financial asset as well. All right, and then once they list community assets and get a feel for what their resources are, then they can list their action ideas and kind of refine them down into those that complement their interests and kind of their strengths, as well as project feasibility and, again, those community assets. And once they've narrowed down their project ideas, they can set some SMART project goals to make sure that the project stays on target, that there's some boundaries to it, that results are measurable, that you can document that what you did, your project changed things for the better. They must be achievable, so challenging goals, challenging projects, but not unreachable. The project should be relevant, so close to the student's heart and experience and interest. And of course, those goals need to be time bound. And usually that's within, in our teams, the context of a school year, an academic school year, although some projects can go into the summer. And then the students work together to create an action timeline. So they make sure they know who's doing what and when. The responsibilities are laid out there, and then a time for when they need to check back in on progress with each other. And of course, the timeline should be updated as the project moves forward as needed. It's important to include time to document, measure, and communicate your project impact. And it can be very impactful, even if you just have 5 students that are working together. Students realize that it doesn't take a whole bunch of people, and it doesn't have to be adults. 5 students can make a difference in the community. And that's really exciting. So I'm going to use those questions, those kind of inquiry questions, that some of those questions on that big long list, I'm not going to do all of them, don't worry, to lead into some project examples. And these have lots of pretty pictures, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. Okay, so Sleepy Eye team wanted to know how they could help butterflies and bees and other pollinators. And that gave birth to a pollinator habitat project. So they designed pollinator garden in a park, public park, that's next to a senior living community, which is behind the students in the picture here. And also at a golf course. They also did some pollinator gardens at a golf course. And this project, as you can see, they're holding a big check, and that's one of the YES awards that they received at the end of the year for this project. And this picture was from a few years ago. I just want to walk you through some of the steps that the students took when they were actually doing their project. First, they had to come up with a plan for where the plants would go and how things would lay out before they just went in there and started planting native plants. And they didn't rely on their own Googling ability to figure out which plants they should plant there. They tapped into the expertise of DNR regional ecologist Megan Benage out of the New Ulm DNR office. And so she worked with the students to figure out what they needed to do to prep the site and help them broadcast seeds and tap those into the loose soil by walking on them. They also ordered a bunch of plugs, so little plant starters with roots and little above ground plant parts. And they planted 600 of those plugs at this particular site, one by one. So you see a student here is putting in one of those plants. This was back in 2018. And then this is the site at that public park. So how's it going? It's going great. And now there is wildlife viewing opportunities for anybody in the town to come by and look at the pollinators and the flowers. You know, it looks pretty scraggly this time of year, but you know, by summertime, it'll be looking great again. And the students also made bee houses, and I think they might have made some to sell as well as part of a fundraiser. So I included that. And this last fall, I was lucky enough to be able to go out to Sleepy Eye and help the students collect seed from that site at Ross Park. And then we made seed bombs. And if you're not familiar with seed bombs, basically you have some prairie seed, and you have a little bit of potting soil, and then some paper clay. So some clay that will kind of decompose. And you roll those up in a ball, and it looks kind of like this. And then once those seed bombs are dry, they can be launched into an area to help expand their native plants that they have started. So that's kind of fun. Another team, this was New London Spicer Middle School, was wondering why the cafeteria doesn't have fresh locally grown food. Everything's processed or comes from somewhere else. And so they started a local foods project. They planted lettuce and other vegetables in a kind of a greenhouse setting under some plant grow lights, and did all the work themselves to tend to those plants and raise them up. And in the end, they were able to harvest 23.5 pounds of lettuce, as well as other food, and those were then served in the school cafeteria. Other teams that do local food projects will donate the food to a community food shelf, for example, be another way to do it. And don't be afraid if you don't have a greenhouse or that kind of space at your school. Another team, New Prague team, made raised planting beds. So you can also do this outside as well to establish a garden. In Westbrook Walnut Grove, the students wondered, why is there parking lot and the lawn behind it? Why is it always so muddy? Just a mess. Well, it turns out that's where the water collects and wasn't seeping into the ground. It was just sitting there and collecting some of the oil from the cars that were in the lot. So they developed a rain garden. And again, this is kind of a multi-year project because they're also using native plantings. And in addition, just doing the rain garden opened up ideas for what else they could do with that lawn space. You know, how could they utilize that better? So they created a 3-hole disc golf course using recycled materials to make the cages. They hope to expand that to more, a 9-hole course eventually. They also created a couple of different outdoor learning spaces, a wooden deck where folks could gather near the rain garden, and then also a covered pavilion that classes could meet in, or any or community groups could meet in. Now, they didn't do all the building or raise all the funds for that, but they have developed a great relationship with their community and with their school, where community members will donate their time or materials to accomplish some of these projects that the students wouldn't be able to do completely on their own. Their next step is to add solar lights to those trails. Some teens in West Central Minnesota wondered, what's the big deal about aquatic invasive species? I mean, we have to clean our boats off. I don't even see these invasive species. So that led to an aquatic invasive species monitoring and prevention project. So kind of a water quality project and a habitat project all in one. Students had to do some learning first. And so we trained them to identify invasive species and use the monitoring equipment, and importantly, how invasive species impact systems, both human systems and the environment that we depend upon. Then the students took paddling trips to nearby lakes, and they did a survey for invasive species and collected data about water quality that were then submitted to the DNR for their aquatic invasive species database. The students then also educated others around them, their peers and adults, about preventing the spread of invasive species. The New Prague Alternative Learning Center YES team wondered, how can we get kids to play outdoors more? So they created 5 natural playscapes at 9 nature centers. So now anyone can bring their kids to the 9 nature center, and they can interact with those natural materials, and they can build things, and they can use their imagination to play in a natural setting. So I think that's really cool. All of these projects we talked about, and the many more that we haven't had a chance to talk about, are really visionary, and they really give me hope for a future that is more sustainable for humans and the environment that we depend upon. And I think that we have a responsibility as educators, as parents, as community members, to lift up those students and give them the tools that they need in order to accomplish the goals that they wish to reach. We have the support of YES coaches who find that that it's being part of YES and doing the projects are just very meaningful, and the change is visible in terms of the impact on their peers. Our major support, we're primarily grant funded. And so we've gotten, for years, we've received support from Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund, Waste Management, McKnight Foundation, the Clean Energy Resource Teams, or CERTs, and the Lift Careers Pathways, which has allowed us to start doing some green job experiences or green career exposure to help build skills and awareness that the students can use moving forward. And we hope that your community will support YES as well. If you are interested in talking about what it takes to start a YES team, what else is involved, because this has been really focused on the projects themselves, I would be very eager to talk to you about that. And this is my contact information. I tend to not be actually at 9 Nature Center these days, working remotely, just like a lot of people. So my cell phone or my email is the best way to get in touch with me. Real quick, I just wanted to share some of the other parts of YES so you can see what a normal year would look like, because we're thinking ahead to next year and next fall, and hoping that we can return to some of the in-person events that we do. That's really some of the favorite things that students do for the YES program. This year we've had to pivot to some virtual events, and those have been pretty successful, and we record those, and they're available to other YES teams at any time, registered YES teams. So we've been focusing on climate change this year, and so we've had a variety of different experts talk to us about that, including Kenny Blumenfeld from the DNR, and we had Eric from the Environmental Quality Board, I think I did that right, talked about flooding impacts, and I just mentioned the green job experience thing as well. But normally we'd be outside and we would be out paddling at Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center at our fall summit. And that's when we get kids together for one day, and get outside for some hands-on learning, doing some water quality testing in this picture, and also some fun, some team building, like the flying squirrel activity is always popular with students. And we also host winter workshops based on students' interests in the projects that they're doing. So we've had a number of teams interested in prairie restoration projects or pollinator gardens. So we put together a Southern Prairies workshop last year. In this picture, students are doing an activity about prairie roots and learning how much deeper the prairie roots go than the height of the plant above the ground, and what that means for water quality and soil health. We bring in experts to talk to the students directly at these workshops, like this ecological restoration ecologist in the upper left-hand corner is doing a role-playing land management plan activity with students. And we also incorporate behind-the-scenes tours into our workshops so that students get access to some pretty cool things, whether it's a wind farm or going behind the scenes at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and their state-of-the-art organics recycling facility. Students do hands-on activities like soils identification. And again, we try to make pretty much everything that we do, we try to have fun with it, because that's the way to capture hearts in order to capture minds. So, and yes, that's me as a banana. So with that, I'll end. And I thank you for your time. It's been an honor to be here with you today.
Excellent. Yeah.
Wow. This was so many great ideas. Thank you so much, Deb. And I know that a lot of us don't teach high school, but just the ideas and how to maybe partner with different grade age levels, this was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I also, just for everybody attending here, I'm putting in the chat, if you are interested in getting CEUs from Hamline University, the link and everything will be in the chat.
Yeah.
I have a question, or would ask if you could talk a little bit more, Deb. I mean, it's like a great number of programs and a wonderful diversity of projects that are community driven. What's the process if someone wanted to start? What kind of support and how would that look like to try to get engaged with YES?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks so much, Jeff. It starts with a conversation with me or one of the two other coordinators that we have for the state. Shelley K. Foster is the program director of YES, Youth Eco Solutions. And then there's another regional coordinator, my counterpart, Taylor Templer, in the western part of the state. And I work with teams in the southern part of the state and this year in the northeastern part of the state as well. So anyway, that would be a great way to start. I should have I can't believe I didn't put our website address on here, but it's yesmn.org. So YESMN .org. Right? Yes.
Oh.
And yeah, and so that'd be a good way to find out more about what teams are doing. And there's information on there about how to start a team. It starts with a couple of passionate individuals, basically, a teacher that's really wants to dive into this, and a few students that are enthusiastic about trying it out. And then it kind of builds from there. A popular question you may be wondering is there any cost to participate in the program? There is a team registration fee, and that counts for the entire year, mostly the academic year. And that helps pay for my work and some of the other opportunities that we can give in terms of funding for project seed funds. We pull from those grant supporters that we mentioned before. We put together project seed fund grants. And so my point is, I don't want you to be too worried about the cost of it. Our team fee last year was $600. which is quite reasonable when you consider how many students and how many activities, events that we have available for the students over the course of the year. The competition at the end of the year with the prize awards. And so you'll get more than that $600 back. But right away, in terms of access to seed funds and access to reimbursement for substitute teachers while you take your kids to the workshops, things like that. So we try to work with you and make it possible. You can also, if you're interested and you're not sure, I can hook you up with one of our existing coaches, and they can, talk to you about their perspective on it. That was kind of rambling. What did I miss? Jeff, what did I miss?
No, I think that's really interesting, Deb. And I'm guessing that because it's such a community idea, that if a site is interested in developing a team, I'm sure that people could help them scrape up the money needed for that registration, especially when you mentioned that would even pay for a substitute teacher. I mean, that's big time.
Right. Yeah, or transportation. Contribute to transportation.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's a stumbling block.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely. Any other questions? Comments? I'm just starting to look at the chat here. Thanks for
I think everybody really loved your ideas that you shared, Deb. It was, it's fun to see how place-based, involved, even if like I'm a preschool teacher and my kids aren't ready to do this. I thought of that 9 Nature Center, and they were building this great outdoor play area that I could imagine kindergartners and preschoolers just like, we want something to climb on, and then they would have to integrate it in their design. It would be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's the cool thing about these projects. There are also often younger kids involved as part of the project. Sometimes they are the audience. Oftentimes they are the audience for presentations. The teams go into the elementary school and talk to the students about what they've learned or run them through activities, things like that. Families are involved at, for example, Party in the Park, and Sleepy Eye is a multi-day event. And the YES students always have educational booths there about water quality, some activities. So really, YES is something that even if the kids aren't old enough to be on a YES team, you can build the foundation for that. Through those experiences, and by getting the younger kids interested and seeing what the older kids are doing, and how it improves life for everyone.
Yeah. Or that pollinator garden right by the senior center. How great, especially this year, if you wanted to go out and go take a walk, and man, that was really thoughtful placement.
Yeah, and they are going to put in benches, and they've been talking for a few years, but interpretive signs as well. They want to do changeable ones so that it could be like whatever's in bloom at that time. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that, but that's something that they want to do. And they really just want it to be a community space. And that feels really good for everyone.
Yeah. One of the things that I picked out of this myself is that it seemed like every single one of the examples you gave was at least equally as much about community development as it was about whatever the project happened to be. And I really appreciate that. And whether that was my lens or whether that's just maybe everybody saw that, I'm seeing heads nodding. So yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's important for us to recognize that connecting to our natural world is community development.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And these students are helping build communities that they may want to raise their own kids in. And so this is good for rural communities that are, experiencing loss. It's kind of a cool thing. Kids see that what they do makes a difference, and they are our future engaged citizens. They are our elected officials. They are our grandkids' teachers. So whatever we can do now to send them off into the world, they'll do amazing things.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent.
I note that Larry Wade said looks like 90% women and 10% male. I don't know the exact percentages, but yeah, we are especially the last few years, it seems like it's been, and I've only been with the program for a year and a half, but heavier female participation than male. For whatever reason, I think it's different by school, but
I also liked Cindy's comment that not only is it community building, but uh, a light onto maybe a career they would be interested in. And yeah, it's interesting that there might be more women, but how cool if they see the environmental fields as being a career for them, whether it's in energy or waste management, erosion design. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's great to, yeah, expose girls to those career options, to normalize those, you know, in terms of equity, gender equity for, you know, access to careers and financial stability and so forth. Young women are often an underserved audience, right, in terms of the sciences, and so this is a great way to eat, you know, to welcome them.
We've seen, that I've worked in the environmental field for a long time, is certainly much more participation by women, even just in some of the living green environmental stewardship type of activities that we used to do at the Pollution Control Agency. So, I mean, there's, you know, some by nature, probably some of that involved, but I think we need to do a better job with our boys. I don't have sons, but frankly, those of us that do, or people who do, we need to do a better job educating our sons and boys and making sure that they're sensitive to these issues and get engaged too.
So true.
Good point, Jeff. Thank you.
And being involved with nature just gives back to people in such a different way that we want that for our boys. We want that for everybody, but we certainly want it for our boys.
Very good. Deb, thanks for taking us down this path for this conversation. It's great, the diversity of programming that we have here. Every Wednesday I show up and there's something new and exciting, a different way to look at seemingly the same thing. In fact, that's where I'm headed, is that next Wednesday, it's all about maple syrup.
Love it.
About tapping the trees. And so Travis Zimmerman with the Mille Lacs, oh my goodness, now I'm gonna.
The Mille Lacs Museum and Trading Post will give us not only just the natural history, but the cultural history around maple syruping here in Minnesota. It's so exciting.
Yay.
Yeah. So that's really fun. So if you're into that already, if you're not into that, if you know people who are, next Wednesday should be a good one as well.